I never thought 3 simple words could transform everything at 57, but here I am, completely changed, and I need to share this with you because if you're watching this, you might be exactly where I was 2 years ago. Feeling invisible. Feeling like your best days were behind you. Feeling like the world had somehow moved on without you. But what I discovered will shake you to your core because these 3 words didn't come from a self-help book or a motivational speaker. They came from the most unexpected place, and they turned my entire world upside down in the most beautiful way possible. Let me take you back to that Tuesday morning in March. I was standing in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals for my family over the decades, staring at my reflection in the microwave door. My husband had passed 18 months earlier, my children were living their busy lives across the country, and I felt like I was disappearing piece by piece, day by day. The house felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories that sometimes felt more like ghosts than comfort. I'd been going through the motions, you know how it is. Wake up, coffee, maybe watch the morning news, putter around the house, call one of the kids if I was lucky enough to catch them between meetings and soccer practice and all the beautiful chaos of their lives. But inside I felt hollow, like I was just marking time until whatever came next, and honestly I wasn't even sure I wanted to know what that was. That morning was different though. The phone rang, and it was Sarah from down the street. Sarah, who I'd known for 15 years but had somehow become just a wave from the driveway neighbor after life got complicated. Her voice was shaking, and she said something that stopped me cold. She said she'd been in an accident the night before. Nothing serious physically, but she was scared and alone because her daughter lived in Seattle and her son was deployed overseas. She asked if I could just sit with her for a while. I threw on my coat and walked the 3 houses down to Sarah's, and when she opened the door, I saw something in her eyes that I recognized completely. That look of feeling forgotten by the world, of wondering if anyone would even notice if you just disappeared one day. We sat at her kitchen table, both of us crying, both of us admitting things we'd never said out loud before. She told me about lying awake at night wondering if her life had mattered, if she'd made any difference at all. I told her about feeling like I'd become invisible, like I'd used up all my purpose raising my children and being a wife, and now I was just taking up space. We talked for hours, and somewhere in that conversation something shifted. We realized we weren't alone in feeling alone. But here's where it gets interesting and where those 3 words come in. A week later, I was at the grocery store, and I overheard an elderly man asking a store employee if they had any idea where he might find someone to help him organize his late wife's belongings. He looked so lost, so overwhelmed, and the teenage clerk just stared at him like he was speaking a foreign language. Without thinking, I walked over and said those 3 words that would change everything. I said, "I'll help you." Just like that. I'll help you. 3 simple words that felt like they came from somewhere deeper than my conscious mind, somewhere I'd forgotten existed. This man, whose name was Frank, looked at me like I just handed him a lifeline. His wife had passed 6 months earlier, and their grown children lived states away. He'd been drowning in 50 years of memories, not knowing where to start, not knowing how to honor her life while letting go of the physical reminders. I spent the next Saturday at Frank's house, and it wasn't just about sorting through belongings. As we carefully wrapped her favorite china and decided which books to donate, Frank told me stories about their life together. He showed me pictures from their travels, letters she'd written him during his deployment in Vietnam, recipe cards covered in her handwriting. And I realized something profound was happening. I wasn't just helping Frank. I was discovering a part of myself I thought was gone forever. You see, for so many years my identity had been wrapped up in roles. Wife, mother, daughter, employee. But somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that beneath all those roles was just me. A person with hands that could help, a heart that could listen, a mind that could solve problems, a spirit that could offer comfort. Those 3 words, "I'll help you," weren't just an offer to Frank. They were a declaration to the universe that I was still here, still capable, still valuable. Word spread, as word does in neighborhoods where people actually know each other. Sarah mentioned to her sister that I'd helped Frank, and her sister mentioned it to a friend whose mother needed help learning to use her smartphone to video call her grandchildren. That woman told her book club about how patient I'd been teaching her about FaceTime, and suddenly I was getting calls from women who needed help with everything from organizing decades of photos to learning how to navigate online banking after their husbands passed. Each time someone called, I felt that same surge of purpose I'd experienced with Frank. "I'll help you." 3 words that became my mantra, my mission, my rediscovery of who I was beyond the roles I'd inhabited for so long. I helped Margaret digitize 40 years of family photos so she could share them with grandchildren who lived across the country. I spent afternoons with Dorothy, teaching her how to order groceries online after her vision started failing. I sat with Carol while she made difficult decisions about moving to assisted living, helping her sort through a lifetime of possessions and memories. But here's what I want you to understand, because this is the part that might surprise you. I wasn't becoming some kind of saint or sacrificing myself for others. With each person I helped, I was getting something back that I didn't even realize I'd lost. I was getting the profound satisfaction of being needed, of being useful, of making a real difference in someone's day, someone's week, someone's life. The woman who had felt invisible was suddenly very visible indeed. The woman who had felt forgotten was now someone people sought out. The woman who had felt useless discovered she had skills and wisdom and experience that were incredibly valuable to others navigating similar challenges. I realized that everything I'd learned in 60 years of living, all the problems I'd solved, all the crises I'd navigated, all the love I'd given and received, hadn't disappeared when my traditional roles ended. It had all become a toolkit, a treasure chest of capability that was just waiting for the right opportunity to be useful again. Those 3 words opened floodgates I didn't even know existed. I started volunteering at the local senior center, helping people navigate Medicare paperwork and insurance claims. I began offering informal classes in my living room, teaching other women my age how to use technology to stay connected with their families. I discovered I had a gift for listening, really listening to people who felt unheard. The ripple effects were extraordinary. Sarah and I became close friends, supporting each other through the challenges and celebrations of our evolving lives. Frank introduced me to other widowers in his situation, and I helped several of them organize their homes and their hearts. The women I taught about technology started teaching others, creating a network of support and learning that spread throughout our community. But the most profound change was internal. Those 3 words, "I'll help you," had awakened something in me that I thought was gone forever. They'd reminded me that my value as a human being wasn't tied to my age, my marital status, my empty nest, or my retirement. My value came from my capacity to care, to contribute, to make life a little easier or a little brighter for someone else. I started waking up each morning with purpose again. Not the frantic, obligation-driven purpose of my younger years, but a peaceful, intentional purpose that came from knowing that somewhere in my day, I might have the opportunity to say those 3 words that had become so powerful in my life. I'll help you. The beautiful thing about helping others is that it creates a cycle of positivity that extends far beyond the immediate interaction. When I helped Margaret organize her photos, she was able to create beautiful albums for each of her grandchildren, strengthening family connections across generations. When I taught Dorothy to order groceries online, she was able to maintain her independence longer, which gave her children peace of mind and allowed her to stay in her beloved home. Every act of help, no matter how small, created ripples of goodness that spread outward in ways I could never have anticipated. And each time I offered those 3 words, I was reminded that I had something valuable to give, that my life experience and accumulated wisdom weren't just personal treasures but gifts that could benefit others. I want you to understand that these 3 words aren't magic in themselves. The magic is in what they represent and what they unlock. They represent a shift from focusing on what you've lost to recognizing what you still have to offer. They represent moving from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. They represent the realization that your worth doesn't diminish with age, it deepens with experience. If you're feeling invisible, forgotten, or purposeless, I want you to know that you're not alone in those feelings, but you're also not stuck with them. Somewhere in your community, in your neighborhood, maybe even in your own family, there's someone who needs exactly what you have to offer. Your kindness, your patience, your life experience, your practical skills, your ability to listen without judgment, your capacity to care. The challenge isn't finding opportunities to help. It's recognizing your own value and worth enough to believe that what you offer matters. It's overcoming the voice in your head that says you're too old, too out of touch, too whatever to make a difference. It's silencing the fear that you might not be needed or wanted or appreciated. But here's what I learned. The world is full of people who are struggling with things you've already figured out, who are facing challenges you've already overcome, who are feeling alone in experiences you've already navigated. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience aren't outdated, they're invaluable. Those 3 words, "I'll help you," became my bridge from feeling irrelevant to feeling essential, from feeling used up to feeling useful, from feeling forgotten to feeling cherished. They became my pathway back to purpose and meaning and joy. Today, 2 years later, my life looks completely different. Not because I changed everything external about my circumstances, but because I changed my perspective about my value and my potential contribution to the world around me. I'm still a widow living alone in a house that sometimes feels too big, but I'm no longer lonely or purposeless. My calendar is filled with people to help, lives to touch, problems to solve, wisdom to share. I've discovered strengths I didn't know I had and rediscovered others I'd forgotten I possessed. Most importantly, I've learned that the chapters of our lives don't have to follow anyone else's timeline or expectations. I thought my story was winding down, but it turns out I was just turning the page to a new and beautiful chapter. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling invisible, if you're wondering if your best days are behind you, I want you to try something. Look for opportunities to say those 3 words that changed my life. I'll help you. Whether it's to a neighbor, a friend, a stranger, or someone in your family who's struggling with something you know how to handle. You don't have to wait for a formal volunteer opportunity or an official program. You don't have to have special training or credentials. You just have to be willing to share what you know, offer what you can, and be present for someone who needs exactly what you have to give. Those 3 words might just change your life the way they changed mine. Opening doors to purpose and connection and joy that you never imagined possible. The woman who felt invisible became someone people actively seek out. The woman who felt forgotten became someone whose phone rings regularly with requests for help and invitations to participate. The woman who felt useless discovered she was actually incredibly useful, just in ways she hadn't anticipated. Your life isn't over just because certain chapters have ended. Your value doesn't decrease just because your roles have changed. Your potential for making a difference doesn't diminish just because you've reached a certain age. If anything, you're more equipped now than ever to offer the kind of help that really matters, the kind that comes from deep experience and hard-earned wisdom. So remember those 3 words. I'll help you. Let them be your bridge to a new chapter, your key to rediscovering purpose, your reminder that the world still needs exactly what you have to offer. Because it does more than you know. If these words found you today, it wasn't by accident. Maybe you've been feeling invisible, forgotten, or like your time has passed. But I need you to know something. The universe conspired to bring you to this moment because you're ready. Ready to remember that you are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are the author, the hero, and the inspiration of your own beautiful narrative. Your chapters aren't ending. They're just beginning to shine with the wisdom only you possess. You are enough, you have always been enough. And the world is waiting for the gifts that only your heart can give. I want to hear from you in the comments below. What are those 3 words that you need to remember about yourself? Share your story, your struggles, your breakthroughs, because your words might be exactly what another woman needs to hear today. And if this message touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel. Together, we're building a community of women who refuse to fade into the background and are choosing to step boldly into their light. Thank you for spending these precious minutes with me and for being brave enough to believe that your story matters.